In this class today, on the course on United Nations and the word peace, I would discuss with you, my dear students, the role of United Nations in human welfare, the role of United Nations in human development. Dear students, we know that United Nations is primarily associated with its key role in international peace and security. Peacekeeping missions, the original broad objectives the UN set out in its charter of the establishment reflects the UN was intended from its beginning to have a role in development in the welfare of people. The primary responsibility being collective security, the other focus the charter itself lays down on is the development, human welfare. The charter position we would discuss first, and later on we would see what UN has done in this regard. I welcome you, my students, dear students. I am Iqbal Rahman. I teach political science in Department of Political Science of Aligarh Muslim University. The Charter of the United Nations, the preamble of the Charter itself says that we, the people of the United Nations, determine to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and the other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. What Charter says, what it lays down, particularly in reference to human development, to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. Chapter 9, International Economic and Social Cooperation. It says, with a view to the creation of conditions of stability and well-being, which are necessary for peaceful and friendly relations among nations based on respect for principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, the United Nations shall promote higher standards of living, full employment, and the conditions of economic and social progress and development. Article 56, all members, what it says, it obligates the members. All members pledge themselves to take joint and separate action in cooperation with the organization for the achievement of the purposes set out in Article 55. This was the Charter position. Charter itself imposes responsibility on the United Nations to work for the well-being of the people around the world. According to the United Nations, human welfare development is to let citizens have access to the basic resources, amenities, and knowledge. People should have all those in order to have healthy and long lives and capacity to participate in their respective communities. In the other literature, human welfare focuses on education, health, housing, income maintenance, in standards of living, environment, politics, society, economy. They all affect the human development. So sometimes they are intermixed. Human development particularly relates to the standards of living. It also standards of living, when we talk of the standards of living, when we talk of the dignified life, there are so many things which go together to make a life dignified. Dear students, one of the principal objectives of the United Nations is to solve social, economic, cultural and humanitarian issues through international cooperation. From the charter position, we get this position that this is one of the principal objectives of the United Nations creation. United Nations does this through a very comprehensive system which has evolved over a period of time in the context of situations and when they became concern for the international community. This consists of funds, programs, specialized agencies and related agencies, etc. Several specialized agencies have been set up to achieve these goals. These are autonomous international organizations incorporated into the United Nations system by the United Nations Economic and Social Council, acting under Article 57 and 63 of the United Nations Charter. Article 57 and 63 of the United Nations Charter. The ECOSOC, the United Nations Economic and Social Councils, created these specialized agencies and they work enjoying their autonomy in cooperation with the ECOSOC. Some specialized agencies existed before Second World War or before the creation of United Nations, or they were created at the time of Treaty of Versailles when the League of Nations was created. Others were created almost simultaneously with the United Nations. All were incorporated into the United Nations system by the United Nations ECOSOC, as I said, under Article 57 and 63 of the UN Charter. There are other intergovernmental organizations that have concluded cooperation agreement with the United Nations. In terms of cooperation structures, some agreements come very close to the relationship agreements concluded under Article 57 and 63 of the United Nations Charter. But due to charter requirements that the agencies deal with economic, social, cultural, educational, health and related issues, these agencies focus on these subjects, these concerns. United Nations refer these organizations, not specialized agencies, but they are referred as related organizations, related agencies by the United Nations. The role of the autonomous specialized agencies under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, also play a critical part in the development cooperation. At present, there are around 15 specialized agencies that carry out various functions on behalf of the United Nations. According to the UN Charter, Economic and Social Council was designed to play this coordinating role in relation to the specialized agencies. In practice, the ECOSOC was not allowed to develop in this way. You need to focus here that the ECOSOC was created It was created to work for the development, for the human welfare. But it was not in practice allowed to carry out this purpose. Let us see how. The structure and the mandate of the Bretton Woods Institution, the institutions which were created at the behest of the United States of America, particularly they are named as IMF, World Bank, and the another institution which was also supposed to come up at the same time was International Trade Organization. It could not come because of some other reasons. The Bretton Woods institutions came to dominate the international financial system. They are the specialized agencies of United Nations, but the agenda of development is dominated by these two specialized agencies, these two organizations, International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These institutions play a determining role in global economy. The institutional arrangements, dear student, within the IMF and the World Bank, in particular the dominance of wealthy states in its shareholder model of governance. Who dominates the governance? The shareholders, the wealthy states. It means what? These two bodies were not influenced by the needs of views of developing state, poor states, small states. So the needs, the requirements, the agendas of these people, these states, were not the priority for these specialized agencies of United Nations, though they remain the specialized agencies of United Nations. Because of their structure, because of the governance system, they are dominated by the West. Since 1980, what we see, what is being observed is that these two institutions have played a key role in setting the agenda of the domestic policy of the developing states, poor states, in terms of financial support, because they provide loans, they credit money, funds. So they emerged as an institutions playing a role in their domestic policies, in the determination of what is good for them, for the poor states. So the issue was that this was meant to be decided by ECOSOC. But in reality, in practice, because of the domination of the West, these two agencies, IMF and the World Bank, they became the determining forces in matters of economic development. Despite this fact that in matters of economics, the IMF and the World Bank, both the specialized agencies of the United Nations, dominate the agenda and beyond, which is beyond the control of the United Nations. Right from the beginning, the United Nations took a leading role in promoting development, particularly in the global south, which created the requirement of specialized agencies. UN Development Agenda, dear students, cut across a vast array of interlinked issues, ranging from the gender equality, social integration, health, employment, education, environment, and the population, human rights, finance and governance, and whatnot. The UN Development Program is the UN's largest provider of grants for sustainable human development worldwide. Many other United Nations programs work for development in partnership with governments and non-governmental organizations. The United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, works in nearly 170 countries and territories, helping to eradicate poverty, reduce inequality, build resilience so countries can sustain progress. As the UN's development agency, UNDP, United Nations Development Programme, plays a critical role in helping countries to achieve the sustainable development goals. The United Nations, through the United Nations Children Fund and specialized agencies such as the World Health Organization, WHO, works towards improving health and welfare conditions around the world. It has, dear students, helped feed children in more than 100 countries, provided clothing and other necessities, and sought to eradicate diseases related to children. It is working in 190 countries to save children's lives, to defend their rights, and to help them fulfill their potential from early childhood to their adolescence. WHO, World Health Organization, is the primary United Nations agency responsible for health activities. We all know this fact. Among its major initiatives have been immunization campaign to protect population in the developing world, regulation of the pharmaceutical industry to control the quality of drugs and to ensure the availability of lower cost generics, and efforts to combat the spread of HIV/AIDS. It is widely regarded as a central actor in the eradication of a smallpox disease that killed millions until 1970s. WTO role in times of COVID-19 epidemic, we have all seen that how it has acted to address this problem. United Nations, when it comes to the question of welfare, has responded to the AIDS epidemic through the establishment of United Nations AIDS Program, a concerted program of co-sponsoring agencies including UNICEF, WHO, UNDP, UNESCO, and the World Bank. This aid program is the leading advocate of global action on AIDS, supporting program to prevent transmission of the disease, providing care for those infected, working to reduce the vulnerability of specific populations, and alleviating the economic and social impact of this disease. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations provides technical assistance, cooperation, and partnership, including technical cooperation program, information and general policy direction and administration in the areas of food and culture. UN Habitat, this is the mission of the United Nations Human Settlement Program. It is to promote socially and environmentally sustainable human settlements, development, and the achievements of adequate shelter for all. UN Population Fund is the largest international provider of population assistance. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees has assisted millions of people around the world. It is the lead UN agency for delivering a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every birth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. United Nations Environmental Program, established in 1990, the voice of the environment within the United Nations system. United Nations Environment Program acts as a catalyst, advocate, educator, and facilitator to promote the wise use and sustainable development of the global environment. The World Food Program, dear students, the largest humanitarian organization, saving and changing lives worldwide. It helps eradicate hunger and malnutrition. It helps millions in approximately 100 countries, which with assistance every year through food or cash distribution and more. In 2022, about 160 million people received assistance from it. It brings life-saving relief. It brings life-saving relief in emergencies and use food assistance to build a pathway to peace, stability, and prosperity for people recovering from conflict, disasters, and impacts of climate change. The United Nations is concerned with issues of human rights, including the rights of women and children, refugees settlement, and narcotics control. Some of its greatest successes have been in the area of improving the health and welfare of the world's population. The key targets outlined in the declaration were further elaborated into the Millennium Development Goals. Means the Millennium Development Goals is a document, is a declaration that actually particularly pertains to the human welfare, the development of the people. These goals were agreed as being the eradication of extreme. These goals were agreed as being the eradication of extreme poverty and hunger, the provision of universal primary education, promoting gender equality and empowering women, the reduction of child mortality, improved maternal health, combating HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other diseases, and ensuring environmental sustainability and the achievement of a global partnership for development involving a greater commitment from wealthy states. Millennium Development Goals, the agenda that has emerged within the United Nations since 2000, has sought to use what authority the United Nations has to build a global consensus on development issues. It attempts to build a consensus that the eradication of extreme poverty is achievable. It is achievable if the wealthy states make it a priority as part of their foreign policy. If they agree, if they want to address this issue of poverty, it could be done away. The declaration also gives a very visible role to the United Nations in the promotion of development and welfare. The UN system contains a number of key agencies that work in development, and through its program of global conferences, it facilitates an international discourse on development and related issues. Neither of these facets of the United Nations work is without problems. What I am saying, that none of these facets, none of these functions of the United Nations are without problems. They have also made a lasting contributions to global development despite the fact that UN faces hindrances, problems when it comes to put things into practice. The United Nations, particularly through its role as convener of the global conferences, has played a key role in building development policy norms and setting universal standards in the area of rights, given growing global inequality and the flavor of development in Africa. This may not seem like much of a claim. However flawed, though the United Nations is, the things would be worse without the United Nations. The question is, United Nations, right from the beginning, there is no doubt it has fulfilled its primary responsibility of maintaining international peace and security. But more than that, its role in human welfare is more significant, more visible, and sometimes it is not the subject of the talk. Sometimes we overlook it, but the role which United Nations actually has played in helping the people around the world in so many ways, they cannot be overlooked. And the issue is that these are the causes which, if overlooked, lead to conflict, lead to violence. They becomes the source of conflict. So peace cannot be established, security cannot be maintained unless these issues, these concerns of the people around the world are not addressed by the United Nations. Of course, United Nations is not a state, but it helps states. It also, at its own level, provides different kinds of assistance, different kinds of directions, different kinds of involvement to resolve these issues, the questions of human welfare. The point is, when we question what United Nations has done in this regard, the better question, I think, would be that what United Nations has not done. United Nations, we know that it depends upon its member states. It depends upon particularly the wealthy states. It depends upon particularly the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. They are the major contributors, particularly the United States of America. It has the largest contribution which it gives to the United Nations, and many of the programs which we discussed here today. Voluntary contribution and the regular contribution under the Charter. United States is at the topmost. The question is that United Nations has no resources of its own, and United Nations is not a state. Despite not being a state, despite not being a government on its own, it governs. And you take any question, any issue, any problem which is of concern to the international community, you would see that the United Nations is there. It is addressing the issue. And if it has not been addressed, it tries to put that agenda, that concern, that problem at the platform of the United Nations and tries to seek the cooperation of member states to address the issue. And through this conferencing, through this platform, it helps to resolve the questions of concern for the international community, for the people of this world. So, in matters of human welfare, in matters of human development, we cannot overlook the contributions of United Nations. Its role is tremendous. commendable. And this is the fact that in the last 80 years around, United Nations had addressed, contributed to peace through these non-political issues, non-military issues, not particularly issues pertaining to peacekeeping, to collective security. It has addressed peace and security through its contribution in the area of human welfare. For today, I stop here, dear students. Thank you.